Today we're going to talk about drawing and line weight. Let's talk about materials. You're going to need a pencil with a good eraser, an ultra-fine point Sharpie, and you're going to need a fine point Sharpie. If you don't have any of these on hand, any drawing material works well. So let's get started. Line weight is the thickness and thinness of a line. I can use my Sharpie to make a thin line. If I want to make a thicker line, I can draw two lines next to each other, and then like I'm doing right now, fill in the in-between space. What you want to avoid doing is making scratchy, what we call like feathery lines. You want your lines to be nice and smooth. So if you accidentally do so, it's really easy to fix by just drawing nice, clean, straight lines next to the lines you just did. So what I am doing now is warming up, practicing creating some line weight just by doodling. I'm using my fine point and my ultra fine point Sharpie to experiment with how thick I can make lines and how thin I can make lines. So I really recommend before you jump in and start practicing, go ahead and take out your sketchbook and just do some doodling. Doesn't matter what you draw as long as you draw. Now that we've practiced making thick and thin lines, we're going to talk about 3 different ways you can incorporate line weight into your drawings. One way that artists use line weight is to show the viewer where light is coming from and what areas are in shadow. So what I have in my first example here are 2 cubes that are in a space. I've got little suns that I drew indicating what direction the light is coming from. I'm going to specifically place thin and thick lines so that way the viewer understands where light is and where shadow is. Shadows are always going to be opposite of where our light source is. So if the light is shining directly above our cube, the shadow should be under the cube. So we'll make the lines that are on the bottom of the cube darker and thicker than the lines that would be near the light source. So if you look at my example to the right, if I would just move my arm out of the way for you just now, the light source is coming from slightly to the left instead of above the cube. So instead, when I move on to the next cube of drawing the line weight just under my cube, I'm going to think about how it would most likely be darker on the right side of my cube since the light is coming from the left. You can imagine when you are drawing something where you want light to be. It doesn't have to be any specific place. You can dream it up yourself. A good rule of thumb is all one side or all the underneath. One more way you can use line weight in your drawings, instead of using line weight to show where light is coming from, you can instead just use it to create more stylized drawings. So this means a drawing that doesn't look entirely realistic. So right now I'm drawing a shoe, and what I'm doing is making all of the contour lines, so the outside lines of my drawings, heavier. They're thicker lines. This creates a way more cartoony illustrative style versus realism that we see a lot in comics and in cartoons. So what you're going to do if you choose to use this style is make those contour outside lines darker, thicker, heavier, and make your inside lines lighter and thinner. And there you have it, 3 different ways to use line weight in your drawings. Experiment with using all 3 different ways in your own.